St. Cloud. That's where we live. When she was 10, she decided she was going to come home to farm. And when she was 16, she decided she was going to make cheese. And if you're wondering about the weird background I have here, I am sitting in our cheese delivery van here today. I'm in St. Paul mid-route. So after Sarah gave me the options, I realized they were all on Wednesdays, and Wednesdays mean I'm in the cheese van. So that's kind of the end of the story. In between, we've built a agritourism business, and we make artisan cheese, and are now getting into other things to share with people. So obviously this is pre-COVID, but this is 2 years ago, our annual Curd Fest. And we're so lucky and so excited. We make artisan cheese, as I said, and we do that on the back of sharing the story of agriculture with people. And I will say, and this is not a plug, and they did not ask me to say this, but Greater Mankato Growth, and through the projects that they do with agribusiness in the area, and Stan Ziegler, I really appreciate the support in the community in the Mankato area, as well as the St. Cloud area, for what's going on in agriculture. But this is how we do it. And my slides aren't advancing. One of the fun things we do in relation to food is we make pan-fried cheese curds. As you can see, there's no batter on there. We just throw them in a steaming hot pan, and so people in our area travel from miles away just to have these pan-fried cheese curds. I'm in the delivery van that you see here, but we like to have a lot of fun. And so on St. Patrick's Day, we make green cheese curds and we throw them out in the parade of Padua. The Padua parade is so large, usually about 8 to 10 exhibits, that we turn around and come back through. So if you're ever looking for a fun St. Patrick's Day event, 1 o'clock every St. Patrick's Day, not on weekends, Padua, Minnesota is the place to be. As I said, we do farm tours, but I didn't really want to spend much time talking about just our business today. We do deliver and ship to me. We are available at Hy-Vee and at the St. Peter Food Co-op, but I wanted to get through to the message and have a conversation with everybody here about farming in general. And one of the big questions is, why are we doing what we're doing? Well, one of the biggest reasons is because we're crazy a little bit, also because we really enjoy people. And one of the things I hear, I work for all the dairy farmers in Minnesota as my full-time job. I work for my wife on Wednesdays doing this delivery van, and on Saturdays at farmers markets. And one of the disconnects people don't understand is why more farmers don't do local food. And I think we need to think more about the incentives there. And we had to create our own market. And if you know anything about farmers, and probably especially dairy farmers, one of the reasons they do what they do is often because they're enjoying the land and enjoying the animals, and maybe don't enjoy people as much. My wife and I already clarified that we're crazy, but we happen to enjoy both things, and not all farmers do that. Second of all, incentives. To start a dairy farm in Minnesota, as long as you have an agreement with your cooperative buyer, and in your area, it might be the LeSueur Cheese Company, which is now owned by AgriPure, or Bongards, or AMPI, which is headquartered in New Ulm. They're going to come pick up your milk every day and sell it for you, and you don't have to worry about marketing. Same thing if you belong to a farmer-owned co-op on the grain side. You have to be good at producing the product, and the marketing and the hauling and transportation and logistics is taken care of for you. We have to do everything else. And the third thing, everybody talks about sustainability in every business, but farmers get a lot more involved in the animals and the land than other people. But no matter what, if you don't financially have the means to stay in business next year, you can't do that. So I guess, I'm not saying you need to trust all farmers every time doing what they're doing, but just like you'd like to probably trust people in your field, just wanted to back up and think about the incentives that farmers in your area, obviously a big pig and big crop area, there's reasons they're doing what they're doing. Somebody's buying their product and somebody's helping them get it there. On the other hand, local food and business like us, if you want us around, you need to support us. And that's through the legislature. That's obviously with your dollars as a market. And it's just in helping ideas and helping things get going. Obviously, if you have a chance to invest, that's even better. But we've been kind of heralded, at least in our local area, I think, as kind of a success story. And we are 7 years into this. We started in 2014. And I would say we are still far from a success story. It's going well so far. but we only got started because of state grants that allowed us to do construction, federal grants that allowed us to get the marketing underway for the first few years. And without those two things, we may still be in business, but we'd be years or maybe even a decade behind where we are today. The final thing I want to talk about today, and this bridges my real job where I work for dairy farmers every day in Minnesota, and my job I'm talking to you about today at Redhead Creamery, livestock. And I think of my pig friends in Nicollet County, and think of dairy farmers across the world. We've really been vilified in this carbon thing. And I won't go too much into it because I can get pretty sciencey. I'm an animal scientist by training, but there is two types of carbon. There's carbon that's always been in the cycle, and that's the stuff that agriculture uses. And you might remember your 8th grade or 11th grade science class talking about the carbon going up and coming back down. Methane's part of that, but the plants that our cows eat reabsorb all of that. And then there's fossil fuels. That's all new carbon that's newly released. And so the only reason I'm sharing that is I am quite optimistic about agriculture, forestry's role in solving the carbon crisis. It's something we're thinking about on our small farm. It's something I know farmers across the region are thinking about. And I think as we're getting ahead of this, a few years from now, people are going to be coming to us as agriculture for the answers on the climate crisis and not pointing to us as the problem. And so I'm excited about that. And that might be a mind shift for some, or maybe you're all already there. But a lot of people are very worried about what's going to happen to animal agriculture when it comes to the climate. But we have a lot more opportunity than negatives. So those are the three things I wanted to share about today. Thanks for listening to a little bit of our business's story. Happy to go into it further, but I'll stop sharing and see if anyone has any questions, or we can start any other conversations. And thanks again for having me.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your presentation, Lucas. Just so you know, so it looks like we are now live on Facebook. And for the benefit of those listening on Facebook Live, or for people watching the recording afterwards, if people have questions, we usually have them post them in chat or raise their hand, and we'll have them read those aloud for you so that anyone watching the recording knows the question as well. We do have a hand raised from Yvonne, so I'll let her get this started off.
Hey, Lucas, cool presentation. I'm dying to try some of the cheese. I'm glad that you mentioned that you market at Hy-Vee and St. Peter Co-op. How else can we, support you? How else, other than making purchases, finding the cheese at farmers market or at those two stores, how else can we help?
Yeah, I think I look to people in Million Cups, at least in Wilmer, and from the short descriptions I heard on all of you as leaders. And so started out of the old Pizza Hut in North Mankato, and has grown into a great company and actually spawned off another cheese company. But we're gonna keep trying to take care of ourselves, increasing our sales, doing all the things businesses need to do. What I need your help with is to help start that next cheese company, that next artisan, whatever. Because the more farmers and the more people, whether they become farmers or start as farmers, but the more land that we add value to in this way, that's better for everybody. That's less land that's used for commodities, and that means the commodity markets go up. So that's good for commodity farmers. That's a new value-added product for the region and for Minnesota. And also, it's just plain fun, right? I mean, one of the reasons tourism, although tourism's big in Minnesota, one of the reasons tourism's so great is it's a marketing tool just to show your region and show your area to other people. And so we want to be that beacon. We've got gas stations we support, we've got schools we support, we've got all these other businesses behind us that we need as infrastructure. And so, I just wanted to give everything you have there's opportunity all over. And whether it's through greater Mankato growth or lobbying at the legislature or just supporting what we already have, I think food business where you're taking what's already on our land and adding even more value to it is really valuable to all of us. And it's valuable to us as Redhead Creamery selfishly because we create a network of artisans. And unlike in the commodity world, we're not stealing a piece of pie from someone else. We're just making the pie bigger and bigger and bigger.
Awesome. Thank you for that question and answer. Brad had just a quick comment that I think is a good suggestion for a way to support businesses like Redhead. And he just noted that he liked your Facebook page to make sure he can see the events and things that you are having. Following that, we have a question from Matt.
Hello, Lucas. First, I really like your website. I like your business concept. I'm in the egg industry. I'm actually on the board of governors at Green Team. You mentioned Sam and what Greater Mankato Growth has done. So appreciate that very much. I'm really looking at your strategic sales channels. One is sales points, right? They're, hey, farmers markets and other places. Have you reached out to wineries or, some of these places in, like you're in St. Paul and other places that are looking for the local connection that pairs with their products? Do you have any larger type of strategic moves like that as opposed to just sales points?
Yeah, that's actually how we got started. So thanks for the question, Matt. So we have a single distributor in the Twin Cities and that same distributor's sister company in Chicago. And before the pandemic, wholesale was about a third of our business. On-farm tourism and on-farm sales was about a third of our business, and then farmers markets was a third of our business. So wholesale market being a third of our business is very, very important to us. And that's actually what's allowed us to have this van that I'm in right now. What happened last year during the pandemic, when the pandemic started in March, is we got no wholesale invoice, no wholesale order for the first time in 5 years. And that meant we couldn't pay our salary of our employees. And so this was a few days before St. Patrick's Day, as you all well remember. That's why we're still on Zoom. And we decided to post on Facebook, hey, we're making a batch of cheese curds because we already told our employees we're coming in, and anybody want them? And it was a pretty ugly picture on Facebook at first, and over time we got better at it. But March and April of 2020, followed by May, are our top 3 sales months ever. And we had a great holiday 2019. And the reason is, first of all, I was able to, and not everybody can do this. But second of all, we thought creatively is we took coolers of ice, threw cheese in them, jumped in a pickup truck, and drove it to wherever we could, and used Facebook advertising to bring it throughout the Twin Cities. So that allowed us to buy a van later in May, and basically wholesale distributor, which is at the corner of Hiawatha and Cedar, basically, if you know where that is in Minneapolis. So we do have that distributor. And then, yes, we do a lot with wineries and breweries, and we've also started picking up, actually, I was just in Cannon Falls this morning, picking up a cheesemaker there. I'm going to another cheesemaker in Minneapolis, actually Alamar, from Mankato originally. And we've become kind of a mini distributor of cheeses for smaller places that our big distributor is kind of too big to service, but we can get them a package of 5 or 6 or 7 Minnesota cheeses all at once. So kind of a long answer to a short question, Matt, but just kind of a quick evolution of where we've come from. We actually started just wholesale and farmers markets. Never had an idea of a retail store. And then we had tour buses calling, and so we said we need to do a retail store. And then we backed away from farmers markets because once we had 2 kids, we just couldn't juggle it all. But now we have staff and interns, and with the pandemic, farmers markets have been just huge. So again, long answer to your question, Matt, but hopefully that helps understand where we've come from.
Awesome. Hey, Lucas, a couple of questions that I had based on that, both where you've come from and where you're going. So I apologize if you mentioned this already, but you mentioned having staff. Just interested in, how many people you guys are employing. And then the second part of my question, so you've mentioned organizations like Bongards and formerly the LeSueur Cheese Company which is Davisco, or Agripure now. Not Davisco anymore. What's your vision? I mean, do you want to be a Bongarde someday, or is your goal to stay in sort of that smaller, you say you make artisan cheese range?
No, there are some great farms in Minnesota who are going to be able to compete on the commodity scale for a long time. We can right now compete on the commodity scale, but I am not optimistic in our ability to do that 5 and 10 years from now. Last night we planted, if those of you who just followed us on Facebook may have seen, last night we planted 113 apple trees to sell to hard apple cider makers. That means these trees, the apples on them aren't good for baking, aren't even good for eating. They're good for hard apple cider, and that's it. But it's a non-commodity. We are probably more likely to shrink our cow herd. We have about 200 cows. 90% of that milk goes to Bongards. We're owners of Bongards, along with about 250 others, and 10% goes to Redhead Creamery. We're far more likely to shrink that herd than grow it, and just try to make more money per pound of milk, and rather than make more pounds of milk, if that makes sense. So that's where we see our opportunity, and we're really excited about working with cider makers, breweries, and wineries. We tried that at the beginning, but honestly, our products probably needed more development. And now that we're going back into them 5 years later, a second time, the welcome is much more received.
Awesome, thank you. We have a comment from Mogwai, and then which is Stephanie, and then we have a comment from Lindsay. So Stephanie, if you wanna share your comment. Stephanie might be unable to unmute. So Stephanie,
I'm here.
just share. Oh, okay.
Good morning, everyone. Here we are. I was just saying, if you wanted to, I don't know if it's what you're looking for, but you can always come to the Hub Food Park here in Mankato and sell your cheese, and just partner with, I've got food trucks. Typically, we're open from Tuesday to Friday from 11 to 2. So we've got a good lunch hour crowd. And what's kind of nice about that is you could double book your day if you strategically plan it to kind of make like twice the amount of sales in one day. And then I started another event that will be the first Saturday of every month. And all of my food trucks sold out of food that day. And I had a vendor from Redwood Falls that was selling their beef, pork, chicken, and eggs. So if you want to sell your cheese, I think you're a non-compete. Anyways,
Cool.
Just throwing it out there.
Yeah, I hadn't heard of it, and I'll say, I mean, we've been involved with food hubs in Alexandria that failed, and we're part of an idea in Wilmer that didn't get off the ground. So kudos to you that it's going and running. That's fantastic.
Thanks. Slowly but surely, we're not giving up.
Lindsay's asking if we sell merch, and Brad answered it for her. Yes, we do have merch. The logo, if you couldn't tell, is basically my wife's face. So I get to wear my wife's face on my chest or hat or back all the time. She's cute, so that helps. And she has red curly hair. And you know, I wanted to get to the kind of bigger picture questions and not just be a sales pitch, but I'll back up and do kind of the original story. The reason it's Redhead Creamery, and it's even more significant than it sounds. My wife has red curly hair. All right, that's step one. Step two is my wife has 3 redheaded sisters out of 3. So 4 redheaded girls. They were known as the Jennison Redheads. Jennison's her maiden name. And step 3 is neither of her parents had red hair. None of their relatives had red hair. And so to be 4 for 4, it's just kind of an anomaly. And I take credit for the name. We don't know if it's true, but it just multiple people take credit for it because it's just so natural, because it's like it's a rarity. So we were kind of fortunate to have a name that's not our last name. Those of you who have businesses know that that can be dangerous sometimes, not in a scary way, but just having your name associated on something is just one step further, but still really close with our identity. So that's where the name Redhead Creamery comes from.
Awesome, thank you, Lucas. Now, talking about some of the big picture questions, and I know you shared one thing that can be done to support is you want to see more creameries out there. Happily, the team at Green Seam, that's part of their focus, and hopefully we see some things coming out of that. But can you share maybe 3 or 4 of the challenges that you guys are facing right now that we might be able to offer advice or feedback on?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is always capital. It'd be nice if I guess we kind of basically have free money in the world. It's just not as accessible as you'd want it to be. So we started this as a farm, I think this is one thing that you think about. We started this as a farm that already had a lot of debt, and we're taking a risk on ourselves. And one of the fun things that we've decided is that, like, our core principle is transparency. So I'm allowed to and regularly talk about dollars. And so I'll just say we make about $1 million in sales a year of commodity milk. And we make, hopefully 1% profit on that. Sometimes it's negative 1%, and up to 5%. On the creamery side, we make $500,000 in sales off of just 10% of that milk, $500,000 of revenue. So if you think about that potential, it's quite large. But on the other hand, to have a farm in the first place, as any of you who are familiar, it's a very high capital, low cash business, and the best strategy is to plow cash back in. At the time we built this in 2012, 2013, we had a banker who we said, we're going to put up a freestall barn, which is another dairy barn. He said, no problem. When we said we're going to build a cheese plant, yeah, we gave him all the books we had read, and then still did a Kickstarter campaign to prove that we had customers out there. And then he was like, oh, okay, I think we can fund this. So just I know there's a couple of banks online, and I work with Profinium for part of my job. But I think that just the familiarity and the risk is really interesting, because you're usually coming from people who are already leveraged in some way and then going forward. We're in a little better position now, and just refinanced actually, but cash is a lot tighter in May than it is at the end of the year when harvest is done for a dairy farm. So I think just that cycle, us understanding, we have a great lender. We work with a credit union up here. Just us understanding how to access that. And the other thing is, a lot of our competitors are in second or third careers. We started this when we were about 30 years old. A lot of them started as a retirement job and don't need to make money. And so I think it's something to be careful where other people set their prices and where you set their prices. You need to be a good storyteller, because they might not line up. So those are a few things related to financials. My next project, which we're thinking about writing a new business plan for, when you make cheese, you make curds and whey, you can actually break the whey lactose into simple sugars and then distill it. So we're thinking about a distillery on site, because we really love paperwork and doing things that are borderline illegal. So that's my current project, and I'm working on fermenting stuff so that we can make a distillery. We're probably in a position now where we could borrow to do that. But anyway, what I was getting back to is one of the problems with an on-farm business versus anything else is our house is on our land is on our land to feed our cows. So taking on an investor who now has some say over our land is a lot more interesting than most places where you're maybe houses across town from your business, across town from something else. So just something to think about, creative ways on how to help people like us or the next business in your area that can do this, take on an investor up front or better access to lending up front, because our stuff gets thrown in with the farm.
Lucas, thank you for sharing those. I know we have some experts in accessing capital on this call. So if there's anything that you think is worth sharing, or on pricing, if anyone has some thoughts on that. Lucas, one thing that I can share, and I'm almost certain that you're aware of it, but there's very limited free money out there. Especially for businesses that are already started. But one of those areas where there is some free money out there that I would imagine you've already been using, but if you haven't, are value-added grants. And your business seems in this distillery idea might be a good, I'd talk to like Sam at Green Seam to run it by him, but both the USDA and the state of Minnesota have value added grants that can help support anything that's taking an agricultural product and adding value to it by turning it into something else. So that's the only type of free money that I'm aware of, and they do require some matching, but I'll see if anyone has any other suggestions regarding those two questions.
I'll just say, as people are thinking, there is now a dairy focused grant. So if you do know of any dairy farmers, there's a organization called DBIA. It just got funded through the Farm Bill. We just applied the latest grant cycle ended May 1st, but they're going to be going on for at least 3 or 4 more years with up to $50,000 grants that don't require a match, but kind of encourage a match. So yes, Ryan, those are great ways to get started.
Awesome.